Welcome to another phone comparison. Let's start with the length. The A04 and A07 are both the same at 164.4 millimeters. The A06 is 167.3 millimeters, and the A05 is 168.8 millimeters. Now for the width. The A04 is the narrowest at 76.3 millimeters, and the A05 is the widest at 78.2 millimeters. The A06 is 77.3 millimeters, and the A07 is 77.4 millimeters. When it comes to the thickness, the A04 is the thickest at 9.1 millimeters. The A05 is 8.8 millimeters, and the A06 is 8 millimeters. This means the A07 is the thinnest at 7.6 millimeters. Now let's see how much these phones weigh. The A04 is 192 grams, and the A05 is the heaviest at 195 grams. The A06 weighs 189 grams, and the A07 is the lightest at 184 grams. The rear build of all four phones is made of plastic. The frame build of all four phones is also made of plastic. Let's move on to the display. All four phones have a PLS LCD display. Let's look at the size of the phones. The A04 is 6.5 inches, while the other three are 6.7 inches. When it comes to the resolution, all four of the phones have a resolution of 720 by 1600. Let's check the PPI. The A04 is 270, and the other three phones are all 262. Now for the refresh rate. The A04, A05, and A06 all have a 60 Hz refresh rate, while the A07 has a 90 Hz refresh rate. When it comes to protection, none of the phones have any protection. Now let's look at the performance of the phones. The A04 has an octa-core up to 2.3 GHz. The A05 and A06 both have an octa-core up to 2.0 GHz, and the A07 has an octa-core up to 2.2 GHz. Let's check the GPU. The A04 has a PowerVR GE8320. The A05 and A06 both have a Mali G52MC2, and the A07 has a Mali G57MC2. When it comes to the chipset, the A04 has the MediaTek Helio P35. The A05 and A06 have the MediaTek Helio G85, and the A07 has the MediaTek Helio G99. Now let's look at the RAM. The A04 and A05 come in 3, 4, and 6 gigabytes. The A06 comes in 4 and 6 gigabytes, and the A07 has 4, 6, and 8 gigabytes. When it comes to the ROM, the A04 and A05 have 32, 64, and 128 gigabytes. The A06 has 64 and 128 gigabytes, and the A07 has 64, 128, and 256 gigabytes. Let's check if the phones have a card slot. All four phones have a card slot. Let's look at the operating system. The A04 comes with Android 13 and One UI 5. The other three phones come with Android 15 and One UI 7. Now for the camera. The A04 has a 50-megapixel main camera and a 2-megapixel depth camera, along with a flash. The A05 also has a 50-megapixel main camera and a 2-megapixel depth camera, as well as a flash. The A06 also has a 50-megapixel main camera and a 2-megapixel depth camera, as well as a flash. The A07 has the same, a 50-megapixel main camera and a 2-megapixel depth camera with a flash. When it comes to video, the A04 can shoot in 1080p at 30 frames per second. The other three phones can all shoot in 1080p at 60 frames per second. Let's look at the selfie camera. The A04 has a 5-megapixel camera that can shoot in 1080p at 30 frames per second. The other three have an 8-megapixel camera that can shoot in 1080p at 30 frames per second. Now for the battery. All four phones have a 5,000 mAh battery. Let's look at the charging. The A04 has 10-watt charging, while the other three have 25-watt charging. Now for the features. The A04 and A05 don't have any security, but the A06 and A07 both have a side fingerprint. When it comes to body rating, the A04, A05, and A06 have none. The A07 has an IP54 dust and splash resistant rating. Let's check the 5G capabilities. None of the 4 phones have 5G. Now for the head jack. All 4 of the phones have a head jack. When it comes to NFC, none of the phones have it. Let's check the speakers. All 4 phones have mono speakers. Now for the price. The A04 and A05 are $91, the A06 is $102, and the A07 is $185. Finally, the results. The A05 and A06 are great for camera and battery. The A07 is best for screen, performance, camera, and battery. Thanks for watching.